Have you noticed everyone feels more angry in the last few years? Have you noticed people snapping lately? A lot of things have changed since the pandemic, making people more prone to anger. Let us explain. First of all, it has been well documented that COVID causes brain inflammation and other negative neurological effects. But COVID can stick around and present as long COVID symptoms for months later, often causing brain fog, chronic fatigue, and even prolonged anxiety and depression. Not to scare you, but sometimes these effects on the brain have been shown to last years later. We suffer from short-term brain inflammation when we catch certain viruses, but our brains also get inflamed from stress. The longer our stress goes on for, the more our brains suffer from chronic inflammation. With long COVID becoming a somewhat common thing, this can make brain inflammation way worse. The brain is getting attacked in multiple ways. Not only did COVID affect everyone during the height of the pandemic, but COVID is still circling around today, typically as a more mild virus. But despite the new variants being more mild, they can still cause long-term effects. Anger and anxiety are closely related to each other in the brain. They share the same neural circuits involving the part of the brain called the amygdala. That part of the brain processes fear and threat-based emotions. Anger and anxiety release the same two stress and danger hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. You may have heard of the fight or flight response. When the body or brain is stressed, initial shocks activate adrenaline for an instant boost to the nervous system, causing faster breathing, muscle tension, and rapid heart rate. When the body undergoes a stressful event or times of high stress, your body activates cortisol to provide the body energy to keep going. Some describe anxiety as the flight side of the fight or flight response. So, anxiety is the urge to escape the stress. Meanwhile, anger is the fight side of that response. So, anger is your urge to confront the stressful event or your urge to control the stress in your life. Both anger and anxiety alike are correlated with higher levels of irritability. So, high levels of anxiety can often lead to anger. When we see people snapping or getting frustrated at minor things, we are seeing their stress hormones in action. That adrenaline and cortisol is taking over. When the brain is inflamed, it's not able to manage or control these hormones the way it should. The body becomes used to the stress and expects it, so people can get stuck in this stress-induced state. The solution is to ultimately remove stressful people, stressful choices, and stressful environments from your life as much as you reasonably can. Then, you can rewire your neural pathways and get a brain reset. But of course, this isn't easy to do anymore. Life has gotten a lot more stressful for people since COVID. It's an obvious statement to point out that stress can make you act out or react in a way you normally wouldn't. Everyone experienced a lot of stress during COVID, but for many of us, that same kind of stress never went away. Sure, we are no longer fighting over toilet paper, but we don't live in the same pre-COVID world anymore. Things have forever changed since COVID. For one thing, why is everything so much more expensive all of a sudden? We were told everything was going to return to normal. People feel lied to after COVID. The increasing cost of living has made life so much harder for the vast majority of people. Some high-income earners seem to not notice inflation as much as the rest of us. That's because wealth has been pushed upwards in an effect known as the K-shaped economy. Most of us truly did become poorer when you account for the pervasive effects of inflation. If you did not already own a house or have a lot in retirement savings before the pandemic, you are suffering more from inflation. The government and its politicians on both sides of the political spectrum made a lot of empty promises. But the older generations made empty promises too. We were told life would be fine if we just worked hard, studied, and got a good degree. These empty promises have led to broken dreams and a feeling of hopelessness. People are still coming to terms with a new reality that seems so much more broken than the reality we were promised and hoping for. But the life we thought we would return to became dramatically more expensive than life before COVID, especially for the younger generations. Rent and the cost of getting a mortgage went up dramatically. If you were old enough or rich enough to already own a house in 2020, you might have escaped this new reality. Estimates now say people are now regularly spending up to around 40% of their income on housing. That's not just referring to people in New York or California, but people all over. Budgeting and financial experts like Dave Ramsey say we should be spending only 25% of our income on a rent or mortgage. So why are so many people paying almost double that amount now? Not because they want to, but because they have to. Let's go way back to the 90s, a time that millennials fondly remember as their childhood. Statistics say that back in the 90s, only about 3 decades ago, the average person was spending only about 21% of their total income on their rent or mortgage. So, they still had about 80% of their money left to go to the movies, go out to eat, go shopping at the mall, or save for a modest vacation with some still left over in many cases for emergency savings and retirement savings. Even with higher mortgage rates in the 90s, the number was still around 21%, higher in some higher cost of living areas, but not the 33% to 39% we regularly see today. When an extra 10 or 15% of your budget is forced to go towards rent, it's a lot harder to save for a house in the first place. Not to mention, you have less money to enjoy yourself, so if you're a millennial, you're probably not able to afford the same quality of life for your kids if you decide to have them. You'd have to work harder or get luckier than your parents had to in order to give that same life for your kids. And we haven't even talked about the rising cost of other things. Groceries are more expensive. Cars are more expensive. Eating out is more expensive. Pretty much everything except for a nice flat-screen TV is more expensive today. And roughly 17% of Americans currently still have student loans on top of this. About 65% of Americans with student loans are younger than 50. So the same ones who are already dealing with more expensive housing costs, since those costs have risen so much in the last few decades. We will explain why things cost so much more after COVID in a future video, so please subscribe if you haven't already. People are now experiencing a massive disillusionment, where things are not turning out the way we were always promised they would. Anger and anxiety are often the result of financial stress. We are experiencing a very real separation of the income and wealth classes today, where it has become harder and harder to achieve an upper-class lifestyle, as well as harder to achieve even a middle-class lifestyle. Each day, people are getting left behind as the top 20% incomes keep the stock market rolling, at least for now. The rest of the economy is left holding the bag and left to figure things out amongst themselves. You might feel angry just hearing this. The separation of wealth classes might trigger some real feelings of injustice, but it may also trigger some envy. If not for you, it does for many people. With envy and jealousy, it is very common that those types of feelings are so deeply buried that we don't even realize we feel them. We may choose to suppress or push down those feelings of jealousy to maintain a happy life. So people can start acting angry for no reason, when the truth is they have layers of buried feelings of jealousy inside. Envy is deeply related to anger. It is often the primary emotion that triggers rage and hostility. Anger feels more powerful than envy, so envious people subconsciously adopt anger as a way to justify themselves and control the world around them when they feel a lack of control to make their circumstances better. Many people are feeling this way, whether they notice the feeling of envy in themselves or not. When money slips through your fingers without your consent due to the structure of the economy, and you watch others still living a comfortable or lavish lifestyle, that's a natural response. But often, envy can sometimes be based on a perception of events, when the truth is, behind closed doors, things are much different than they appear. Social media has made envy such a normal part of our lives. Have you ever watched an influencer flaunt all their new designer clothes and bags from an overseas shopping haul and just thought to yourself, how disgusting? The new world we are living in inspires much envy, with influencers we can't look away from, but they're making dollars upon dollars with every second of our views. Thousands, or even millions of us, watching their pointless, materialistic, stupid videos. Even the influencers that seem like the good ones take a turn for the worse when they experience a little too much fame and clout. Do you remember when social media was about silly things? People just posted random thoughts or goofy pictures. Over time, people started using these apps to one-up each other and compete for attention. That might just be the course of human nature, but social media took a turn for the worse. Now we have influencers to taunt us with their wealth, but we're the ones providing them the wealth and attention. Why do we do this to ourselves? Not all social media is meant to make you self-destruct. You know which apps I'm talking about. So let's be really honest here. These apps use your eyes for views to earn greedy, materialistic people money. Those apps are also designed to distract you on purpose and use your free time to make self-centered people rich. The escape from reality into the world of social media is a distraction designed to cause us to stop looking around at all the problems present in our new post-pandemic world. People need support more than ever. Our lives are designed to be more isolated than ever before. We tend to keep to ourselves instead of involving ourselves in community, especially after COVID. We keep in touch with friends online instead of taking the time and effort to visit with our friends in person. We live in a social media bubble and spend time online because it's easier and cheaper to do so. And in these difficult times, many younger generations could desperately use help from the older generations. The older generations, generally speaking, have more time, money, and the ability to help. But instead of helping out their kids and grandkids, they tend to prefer to sit at home and scroll social media or spend money on themselves. They tell us that they had to struggle too, and they tell us we deserve to enjoy our retirement. Meanwhile, younger generations feel left in the dust. Birth rates plummet internationally as these younger people feel like they can't have kids because they have no one to help them in a more stressful world. People now, more than ever, feel left to fend for themselves. It's been a little over a decade now that people have been chronically using social media, and it shows. These habits peaked with the pandemic, where people had nothing to do besides sit inside and scroll. But we aren't going to be looking out for one another until a large number of people start quitting socials, or at least spending way less time on them. And not all forms of social media are competitive and highly addictive. You know which platforms I'm talking about. The ones designed to keep you on your phone all day, consumed with other people's lives. You can stay in touch via text. It's old school, but it's much healthier for our culture to stop supporting a toxic culture of competitiveness, which isn't even based in reality most of the time anyway. We are in an important time where difficult choices and sacrifices must be made in order to turn things around. We don't have the same communities and social support networks we did decades prior. Once again, this is largely due to social media. But that's not the only factor. Robert Putnam's famous book, Bowling Alone, examines the reasons why we've been experiencing a decline in community support. The beginning of this social shift started in the mid-1900s. What was the main cause of this social shift? Robert Putnam points at technology, beginning with TV. Electronics like TV, then the internet, then social media all pulled people away from other people in their communities and gradually kept them inside more and more. If you felt bored and lonely decades ago, you might go for a walk and have coffee with a neighbor on their porch. If you feel bored and lonely now, you reach for your phone. This effect is made more extreme with the cultural shift towards suburbs. This might seem counterintuitive at first. Don't suburbs create a new sense of community within their neighborhoods? Don't neighbors run into one another at the community pool or the neighborhood clubhouse? Don't neighbors make conversation with one another while walking their dog? Don't the kids in neighborhoods play with one another? Of course there are exceptions, but suburbs tend to push towards a few things that counteract the community effect. Typical suburban houses usually tend to be bigger houses compared to an average apartment, with more bedrooms and more open living spaces that make it comfortable to stay inside. Typical suburban houses also tend to have a sizable and private backyard. It's easier and more comfortable to read and relax in your own backyard versus going to the park or a cafe just to read a book. Suburbs also spread outwards. When you're already living towards the outer side of the city, it becomes increasingly challenging to make the effort to drive into the city to go do things. Instead of driving 25 minutes to visit a unique coffee shop downtown, you end up driving 10 minutes to go to the local Starbucks. Or maybe you just stay home with how expensive it is now to leave the house anyways. Having your own space is nice, but there comes a point where being isolated and lonely can be destructive to your mental health and even affect your physical health. It takes more effort to connect with people in person today. But it's good for us. If you can find good people, it's worthwhile to connect with them in person. Unfortunately, it's harder to find good people today for one very big reason. You may already have noticed this, but research is finding that heavy social media usage reinforces self-centeredness. So it's not you imagining it. People really are getting more self-centered now. One study found that people who posted high volumes of photos showed a 25% increase in narcissistic traits over just 4 months. Social media usage is associated with lower empathy scores, and it inspires users to participate in dishonest and insecure behavioral patterns by encouraging photo-distorting self-editing apps and filters that can now convincingly be used on both images and videos. It's important to remind ourselves that social media is run by capitalist corporations. Those companies waste your time so you stay up late scrolling instead of looking for solutions to the more important things going on. The FOMO effect is real. These apps are designed to be a cash-grabbing machine. It's not a coincidence that you spend more money on Amazon, order more food delivery, and buy more crap you don't need when you spend a lot of time on social media. You see your friends taking vacations they can't afford, so why can't you? You see influencers buying overpriced bags and getting their nails done, so why not you? In an increasingly challenging economy, social media also pushes people towards spending every dollar they have in dollars they don't have, which results in credit card debt. The cards are already stacked against younger generations, but the nature of these apps make it worse by pushing influencers to sell us things we don't actually need, normalizing these constant purchases. So don't make life unnecessarily harder on yourself participating in the buy now, think later consumerist culture. I'm not saying you can't treat yourself once in a while. Life is hard right now and we need certain things to look forward to. But let's be realistic about what we have rationalized to ourselves. Maybe we should stick to 1 or 2 treats instead of the mindless and endless stream of constant dopamine hits. I'm not here to shame anyone because this is all by design. All of this just means these apps are working the way they were always supposed to. Buying more stuff, taking more vacations you can't afford, and spending more on deliveries is the natural reaction when you're spending lots of time on these apps. But I'm here to tell you the truth. And the truth is, your time and money are being taken advantage of on these apps. Even your mental health is being taken advantage of. Research confirms that even if you're not the one posting, scrolling on these apps still leads to increased rates of anxiety. Mindless scrolling is not doing us any favors. So, do yourself a favor, and if you haven't already, take a vow to quit the toxic forms of social media. You know which apps I'm talking about. Do it now. Or, at the very least, put yourself on a strict socials diet, where you only use them once a week. You're not missing much, I promise. It's not just Gen Z and millennials who are chronically addicted to these apps either. Boomers spend an average of at least 1 hour per day on social media. But the study that reported the over 1 hour per day was self-reported data, so boomers may actually be spending much more time on social media that they're not admitting to. Allow me to elaborate upon another reason why people seem so angry now. There is a massive lack of social support, especially ever since the pandemic. Research states that over 80% of boomers are regular users of these apps. Boomers are also statistically 19% more likely to post content than any other generation. When asked, they self-report that they use it to stay in touch with family and friends, but statistically, they're also spending significant time watching reels and scrolling videos. So they aren't simply using it to stay in touch with family. Statistics show that boomers are surprisingly active consumers of social media videos and content. The numbers for how much time boomers spend watching videos on social media reflect that the time that their generation is spending on social media platforms is actually increasing year by year. Boomers like to think of themselves as tech-savvy, so they don't feel left behind. So these apps entice them by making them feel like they are learning how to operate new technologies. Boomers, who once struggled to learn to use computers, are now swiftly navigating their iPhones, scrolling reels, and liking and commenting on posts. They are impressed with their new tech expertise. So, in addition to the dopamine hits they get from using these apps, they flatter themselves by telling themselves they are keeping themselves youthful by engaging with social media apps. Next time your mom or grandma says she's too busy to babysit, ask her the last time she checked Facebook. If she's telling you the truth, it was statistically at least an hour within the last 24 hours. The lack of social support we are suffering from today isn't just from lack of caring. It's from chronic social media usage, which distracts boomers in their retirement years. Instead of volunteering to give back to their communities, or making the effort to travel to visit children or grandchildren, they are tempted to take cruises to keep up with their friends on Facebook, or spending money on things they don't need because they fall victim to the same very powerful marketing strategies used on younger generations through these apps. It's much easier to watch your kids and grandkids from the sidelines than taking the time to get yourself dressed, jumping in the car, and taking a drive to visit family. Some blame the car for this and say it's no longer safe for them to drive. But due to more new cars on the road with enhanced safety features, these fears or complaints about driving might not be legitimate excuses. This might shock you, but Consumer Affairs produces data on fatal crash statistics, which states that boomers are actually safer on the road statistically than any of the younger generations. Contributing factors may include the fact that they aren't driving as often, but they also can typically afford safer, newer cars, and they have decades of experience driving without smartphones, so they tend to feel confident in their driving abilities. For whatever reasons, they are statistically less likely to die in a car crash than younger generations. With fully autonomous vehicles and assisted driving technologies in newer cars, cars can be less intimidating for older people. There are certainly some that should remain off the roads, but the point is that many of them are perfectly safe in a car. Traditionally, retired seniors and elder women who may have been stay-at-home moms who didn't have to retire from a traditional job were the main category of people who were giving back to their communities. Whether it was giving young moms a break by offering to babysit a neighbor's young children, babysitting their own grandchildren, volunteering to help watch kids in a daycare setting, At a church or otherwise, families have relied upon this contribution to childcare for centuries. But it's a noticeable missing piece in today's world where that extra hand in childcare is absent. Obviously, however, not all boomers are in a position to help out. Some will be working well into their declining years, but many are currently benefiting from generous pension systems, a stock market that has climbed higher and higher over the last few decades, and have paid off houses, all in addition to collecting income from Social Security checks. You've probably heard about the declining birth rate. With all this going on, many young people simply feel too stressed to have kids. They don't feel supported by the seniors in their extended families or by the seniors in their communities. It's easy to feel angry when you feel like your parents prefer to leave you behind instead of contributing back to their kids and grandkids to leave behind an important legacy. In addition, the government lied a lot during and after the pandemic. Politicians made it seem like student loans would be forgiven. Some made it seem like inflation was just a passing thing, not something to worry about. They continued to make it seem like the economy and job market would be just fine. It turns out that politicians were doing shady things behind closed doors. Employers forced their work-from-home employees to return to office, forcing many employees to move or get laid off. People were once hopeful but now feel failed by the power structures around them. People feel abandoned and lied to. Brain inflammation was just the start of it. We saw rapid inflation change many people's lives and living situations, some for the better, but for most, not so much. People have more reasons to feel jealous and envious of one another thanks to social media and a growing wealth disparity. And after years of heavy social media usage, we are seeing people forget to show up for each other, prioritizing pointless materialistic things instead of finding support in family and friends who deserve that support. People started fending for themselves. It's no wonder people are angry ever since the pandemic. Anger is a signal that something went wrong a long time ago. So it's time to start speaking up about it. Let's be the ones who are honest in a fake and manipulative world. Maybe this anger will invigorate us to make some big changes soon. Thanks for watching. Please give us a like if you'd enjoy more content like this.